I had gone across the street here to the beach and came back. It was too windy. We have a bit of a tropical storm moving over us here today. So tested, and it was a little bit windy, so came back here. Still a bit windy, but I think the sound should be okay. We're a little bit sheltered here. There's a tropical storm Nana, I think, that's in the area, due to develop into a hurricane. I think it's heading for Belize from what I was reading. It's about 150 miles east of here, moving west. So thankfully it's only expected to be a tropical rainstorm that'll pass over here today. We're very fortunate. We're kind of sheltered under Cuba here, so we generally don't get the worst of it. So we're very thankful for that. So wanted to pick up where I left off yesterday in the wonderful new adventure and a new position, new challenge, new journey of a traveling position. And as I mentioned, this just came at the perfect time for me in needing to change course and change direction, but still very much committed to staying within the same company. We had a nice relationship for the 15 years up until then. I gave a lot to them, they gave a lot to me, and we got along just fine. It worked out really well. But this new position really opened a lot of doors and a lot of new challenges in a great way. So I talked yesterday about, initially getting, building relationships with those ships, and that over the course of that year, that's what happened, and it was exciting time. Also around that time, what started to happen, the company started to revitalize some of the older ships. Basically what that means is that, we had these beautiful new ships coming out, and the ships are gorgeous, but what it meant was that the older ships were becoming a bit dated, and so the company invested tens of millions even in one ship. We call it a revitalization. It was a refurb. Even one ship would be a 20, 30, 40 million dollar refurb. I mean, this was a serious upgrade it was getting. And in addition to that, we were adding new dining concepts, which was right up my alley in the area that I was in. So typically when these ships came out, they had a main dining room and then they had a buffet area at the top, and that was pretty much it. And as a ship, as with anywhere else, it's about real estate. And what the company adjusted or came up with was new restaurant concepts, and took some of the previous real estate on the ship and basically built these restaurants from scratch. And those would happen during typically a 5-week revitalization. An entire new restaurant concept would be built just like that. It was incredible. It was all down to the planning. The planning was exceptional. And as traveling team, we would be assigned to be on board, even in the planning, very much in the planning stages, but we were heading up these new restaurant concepts. And they took place in various different places. I think the first one I did was in Freeport, Bahamas. We did another one, did a couple in Cadiz in Spain, did a couple in Singapore. So even within this, it was great traveling. Now the conditions on board were pretty tough. If you can imagine a building site with 1,400, 1,500 constructors, and the noise and the hammering, and so it wasn't the usual really nice cruising environment. It was tough. AC would be down a lot of the time, so it was a very tough working environment, but you just get on with it. But what was particularly enjoyable and exciting for me was that was my first experience of teaching, I guess. I'd done it to an extent on the ships with our training programs, but with these new restaurant concepts, and they were so different, they were so specific. I mean, one was a family style Italian restaurant, another was a Japanese sushi restaurant, another was a Brazilian steakhouse, and then a traditional steakhouse, a chopped steakhouse. So these were all very different concepts, and not just the menus of the food, the approach to the service was really elevated level of service, and they were themed restaurants, so there was a massive amount of time investment put into developing the service side of it as well. And that's where we came into it, was in developing the new teams that were going to take out this new restaurant 5 weeks later. So we developed a really cool extensive training program. Thankfully we got some off-site training facilities to use, because to do it on the ship just would have been really challenging. So that's what we did in each of these locations. We found out very quickly that we needed an off-site training facility. And we would mock up that training facility as close to exactly how the restaurant was going to be, the number of seats, the uniforms, the equipment, the chinaware, the menus. And we would just, so initially when we get on board, we'd have already set up interviews for those that had wanted to be considered for working in it, that were already on the ship. So we'd spend the first couple, 3-4 days conducting those interviews and selecting the teams. Typically a team was 8 to 10, maybe 12 of the staff. And there was great excitement, you know, among them, because it was a new concept and we'd set it up so that financially it was attractive as well. And then we get rolling with the teams, and that's when I developed this huge passion for teaching. And it really stemmed from that. It was, I just got such a kick out of developing and knowledge and having fun and really bringing these guys and girls up to speed in a really short space of time. I mean, if anyone has ever been involved in a new restaurant concept, it usually takes months, not a couple of years. This was all happening in 5 weeks, so it was frantic, but it was organized frantic, if that makes sense. To the extent that when, you know, the opening came, and I mean the grand opening was a big thing. There was a ribbon cut, the captain was there, high profile people were there from Miami. There was a lot riding on this. It had to go very, very smoothly. And so typically our best case scenario, we were handed this brand new venue about 3 days before opening. So we get to do some dry runs, we get to do, you know, bring crew in and staff in and test everything. Because when the opening night came, we were back sailing with regular guests, and typically our VIP guests were invited to the ribbon cuts and the openings. So there was a lot riding on them, and it was always a rush to the finish, but we always somehow managed to make it. And huge satisfaction, and I'd stay on board for a couple of weeks after the ship was back in service, just to iron out the kinks, work closely together with the culinary team, to make sure the front and back of house were running, you know, super strong, and that they'd hit their groove already. Those revitalizations, I think I did about 6, maybe 7 over the next year and a half. There was a lot going on at that time. So they took up a lot of time, and in between that, of course, doing the ship's visits and everything I spoke about yesterday. So it was a full-on time. It was an incredible amount of travel, but I loved it, absolutely loved it. Got energy from it. So I'm going to leave it at that for today. The journey continues tomorrow. There's still a lot more to come, and funnily enough, what that experience led to, and it was something that I had wanted to happen for quite a number of years in the company, and a lot of other people did, but it required a lot of funding and required a lot of effort and selling it to people. And finally, after many years, it came through, and I was right in the thick of it when it did happen, and I look back on it now, and I did then, as kind of been my legacy with my 20-year career with an incredible company. I really felt that this was going to change people's lives on the ships, and that it was going to change my life, and to being so directly involved in it, it felt like my way of giving back for everything that had been given to me up until then. So look forward to continuing it. As always, thanks for tuning in. Please stay safe and have a wonderful day out there. Take care. Bye.